What are the most important attributes to be section commissioner?
You better have a thick skin. What decision you make, some people are going to be unhappy. I always use the adage that when I make a decision, I have 50% happy and 50% unhappy. The same problem, a second decision, I now have 25% happy and 75% unhappy. So when they tell me that President Obama has got a 50% rating, it's great, because on two decisions I only have 25%. So you would better understand right from the very start that you're not going to make a lot of people happy. You have to make sure that you follow what your rules state and what the intent of what you're trying to accomplish, and follow that and stay on that path, and be willing to withstand people that are unhappy, because there are going to be people unhappy with decisions you make.
How do you want to be remembered by athletic directors, coaches, parents, and administrators, and observers for your time as section commissioner?
Probably that I was fair. I tried to look out for our student athletes when I could. I think my goal was always, let's make the student eligible when we can. Now, some people would debate, well, you couldn't do that all the time. Absolutely not, I couldn't do it all the time. But the biggest goal, my goal was always to make the student athlete eligible, to try to make as fair as a level playing field as possible. It's not always possible to do it, I get that, I clearly do. But to try to give the kids the best experience. If in 20 years from now, some student athlete that played during my tenure could say, what a great experience I had at Sleep Train, or at Sac State, or at Wood Creek in the water polo finals, then you know what, it's worked.
So you spent many years in California high schools as a teacher, coach, and administrator. Tell us about your greatest influences that brought you into education and into athletics.
Well, there's three people really affected my life. One was my dad. There's a lot of stories about my dad, but he had a tremendous effect on my life. And make a long story short, there was a story that popped up, and he put his fingers in my chest and he said, "You make sure you always do what is right, not what is popular. Always do what is right, not what is popular." I had that kind of written on my desk. And a lot of times you have to make some tough decisions. You have to do what is right, and it's not the most popular thing. So that's number one. My dad, without question, was probably the most important person. Second is my wife. She's my best friend and my toughest critic. Been married for 35 years, and she could pat me on the back, and then 10 minutes later, be right in my face, tell me things that I could do better. So I really appreciated that. And thirdly, my high school basketball coach, who, I met him when I was 15 years old, and his name was Rene Herrerius. He was the head coach at the University of California at Berkeley. He was Pete Newell's assistant. Then he was the head coach there in the 60s, and left there when the riots broke out, and came to where I went to high school at El Camino High School in South San Francisco. And it was spent a couple weeks ago. It's up here for a couple days. 88 years old now. Tremendous influence. Just here again, I think it was enforcing the same things that weren't being enforced in my house the whole time. Was do what is right, not what is popular, and you won't have any problems. And I think the biggest thing for me, Jim, was I went to El Camino High School in South San Francisco. Great education. I had great coaches, great teachers. I loved going to school. I was 8 years old. I wanted to be a high school coach. And I never wanted to know if I wanted to be a commissioner, but that's where it evolved.
How will you spend your time in retirement beyond helping out with the CIF state office, and is it going to be hard to keep you away from high school sports?
I think anybody that just is kidding themselves that they think you can just walk away. It will be difficult at times. I think with my involvement with the state, I'll be involved with state basketball. I know I'll be involved with golf and doing some things in other sports as well. And I think there's other options that are going to avail themselves within the CIF for me to stay involved. I don't want to be an individual that is forced out. Somebody once told me it's great to retire and be invited back to the parties instead of being sent away and never told when the parties are going to occur. So it's been a great run. We're still young enough. We have our health. We're going to travel. We're going to go to Italy here in a couple months. So I think the state office will tap into me, and I think we'll find a happy medium somewhere between that and golf and some cards and some other stuff. I think I'll have plenty to do.
What advice would you give or have you given to Mike Garrison, the incoming Sac-Joaquin Section Commissioner and your successor?
Mike will be fine. You know, he comes from a strong administrative background. And he's been through all the chairs. He's been our president, our past president. He's chaired different committees, so he's seen it. But I think I've also tried to explain to Mike, it's not like the Rockland community. He's now overseeing 200 high schools, and here again, he's going to have to make some decisions. He needs to go in and he needs to get his feet on the ground and stay focused and think about the decisions he makes, get the right advice from people, make it and live with it, and then move on. And he'll be okay, but he will be tested. I'm not going to make any bones about it. People are going to, say, well, Pete's not around anymore. Maybe we can get away with this and get away with that. So he may get pushed a little bit. He'll have to find his comfort zone and do what's best for him.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having us tonight, Pete, and for sharing your insights and your experience in all your years in high school education and sports in the Sac-Joaquin section. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Jim, for coming over the house and